Asterisk, I hadn't been home in 6 months. College kept me busy, distracted, and away from things I didn't want to think about, like how cold my house felt even in the summer. Asterisk. Dad picked me up from the station with one hand on the wheel and the other glued to his phone. He smiled, said he was proud of my grades, then drifted into a meeting call before we even reached the highway. I nodded along, pretending not to care. When we arrived, Melissa opened the door. "Jake," she said, her voice a little higher than I remembered. Her smile was warm, but her eyes tired, almost hollow. Asterisk, "Hey," I muttered. The hug she gave me was quick, just enough to be polite, not long enough to mean anything. Asterisk, she looked different. Her hair was shorter, lips a little fuller, and the dress she wore clung to her frame like it was tailored yesterday. I wasn't sure if it was appropriate that I noticed, but I did. Asterisk. Dinner was silent except for the clicking of utensils and the occasional throat clearing from Dad as he replied to messages mid-meal. Melissa asked about my classes. I answered. In short bursts, she listened attentively, like she actually cared. Asterisk, when Dad got a call and left the table. I caught Melissa staring into her wineglass for longer than anyone should. I wondered how often she sat at this table alone. Asterisk, later that night, I walked past their bedroom. The door was open a crack. I expected low murmurs, laughter, maybe even intimacy. Instead, there was just silence. Then the bathroom light turned on. She came out alone, adjusting her robe. The house creaked in all the wrong places. The next morning, I came down to find Melissa in the kitchen, hair damp, robe barely holding together. She was barefoot, sipping coffee, scrolling her phone. She didn't flinch when I entered, just smiled. "Half awake morning," she said, voice husky from sleep. I looked away. "Morning." Asterisk, she poured me coffee without asking, handed it to me like it was muscle memory. Our fingers touched for half a second too long. Her eyes met mine, soft, unreadable. Then she looked down and went back to scrolling. Asterisk, that day, I noticed how often Dad's name lit up her phone screen, text after text, canceling dinner plans or apologizing for being late. By the third message, she stopped replying. Asterisk, by the fourth day, I stopped pretending not to notice the way she dressed, always elegant, always just a bit too tight for a woman cooking breakfast at home. Asterisk, that evening, I came back from a jog to hear her crying. Asterisk, it wasn't loud, just a soft, broken sound coming from the laundry room. I paused on the stairs, frozen. I wanted to turn around, say something, but what would I even say? That I hurt her pain. That it made me feel things I shouldn't. Asterisk, I went to my room instead, and took the longest shower of my life. The water was hot enough to fog the mirror, but it didn't erase the sound of her sobs from my mind. Asterisk, that night, I stayed up scrolling through old photos, family vacations, birthdays, forced smiles. Melissa was always there beside Dad, always looking a little too perfect. I zoomed in on her face, trying to see what I missed back then. Was she always this lonely? Asterisk, the next morning, I found her at the hallway mirror adjusting a thin gold necklace. The robe she wore slid slightly off one shoulder. When she turned, she caught me staring. Neither of us spoke. The silence was louder than words. Asterisk, I'm going out for groceries, she said. Want anything? Asterisk, I shook my head. She nodded and left without another word. Asterisk, I stayed in my room all day. Not sure if I was avoiding her or myself. Asterisk, that night at dinner, Dad didn't come home. Melissa cooked anyway. We ate in silence again, just the two of us. Forks scraping against ceramic. Tension so thick it felt like a third presence at the table. When she stood to take the dishes, I stood too. You don't have to, she said. Asterisk, I want to. Asterisk, we washed quietly, shoulder to shoulder. Her hand brushed mine as she passed a plate. She didn't pull away. Asterisk, I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about that touch, how something so small could feel so loud. Asterisk, and deep down, I knew something had shifted. It hadn't happened yet, but it would. Saturday came like any other day, quiet, warm, and unnervingly still. Asterisk, Dad had left early for a weekend business trip. His goodbye was a mumbled promise over a rushed breakfast. Melissa didn't walk him to the door. She stayed at the table, stirring her coffee long after it had gone cold. Asterisk, I tried to keep to myself. Read, scrolled my phone, paced the hallway. For no reason, the air in the house felt heavier without him, like something unspoken lingered in every room. Asterisk, by mid-afternoon I went for a shower to shake off the restlessness. Asterisk the steam fogged the mirror as I stepped under the water. Hot and cleansing, but it didn't clear my thoughts. Images kept returning of Melissa's robe slipping off her shoulder, of her eyes catching mine and never looking away. I didn't want to think about it, but I did. Asterisk a noise snapped me out of it. The soft creak of the door. Then a voice. Asterisk oh Jake. Asterisk I froze. Water still running. My hand reached for the towel. Asterisk, she stood in the doorway, halfway in, barefoot, holding folded laundry. Her eyes widened for a moment, but she didn't turn away. Asterisk, I didn't know you were in here, she said quietly, but her tone lacked panic. No rush to leave. Just ... stillness. Asterisk, I was just finishing. I said, voice barely audible. I stepped out, wrapping the towel around my waist, heart hammering in my chest. Asterisk, she didn't look away. Her eyes scanned my face, my chest, then flicked back up like nothing had happened. Still, something lingered in the air. Asterisk, I was putting towels away, she said, her voice softer now, almost shaky. Didn't mean to barge in. Asterisk, it's okay. Asterisk, neither of us moved. The silence between us wasn't awkward, it was electric, dangerous. She stepped inside, slowly, like crossing an invisible line. Jake, she said again, but different this time, not like calling my name, like remembering it. Asterisk, she set the towels on the counter. Hands trembling slightly. Asterisk, I don't even know who I am in this house anymore, she said suddenly, voice breaking. Your father, he's always gone. He doesn't look at me the way he used to, doesn't touch me, doesn't ask how I feel. I wake up and wonder if I've disappeared. Asterisk, I didn't know what to say. My mouth was dry, every word got lost in my throat. She turned toward me, slowly, her eyes glistening. I'm sorry, she whispered. I shouldn't be saying this to you. But she didn't leave. Her hand rose tentative, shaking and brushed a droplet of water from my shoulder. That single touch burned hotter than the shower behind me. Asterisk, she looked up, eyes wide, searching mine for something. Permission, doubt, forgiveness. I didn't know which. Asterisk then. She leaned in. Asterisk her lips met mine like a secret, not a kiss. Slow, hesitant. But when I didn't pull away, it deepened, became something else, something reckless and trembling. Asterisk my hands hovered in the air, unsure of what they were allowed to do. Her body was warm against mine. The towel between us felt like the only line we hadn't yet crossed, and then, it didn't matter. Asterisk, it wasn't rushed, it wasn't wild. It was slow, quiet, and filled with things we couldn't say aloud. Things that lived in the spaces between our gasps and the pause before every touch. Asterisk when it was over, we lay side by side, on my bed, neither of us moved. Asterisk, she stared at the ceiling. I stared at her. No one spoke. After a few minutes, she stood, wrapped herself in the robe again, straightened her hair without a mirror. I should go, she said, more to herself than to me. She paused at the door, hand on the frame. Asterisk this didn't happen, she whispered, then walked out without looking back. Asterisk I sat up slowly, heart still racing, skin still tingling from where her hands had been. The air felt colder now. My room, once familiar, now felt like a crime scene. I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. Asterisk, I lay back, staring at the ceiling like she had, wondering what had just unraveled inside me. Inside her. Inside this house. The line had been crossed, and, the worst part, I wasn't sure I wanted to go back. Asterisk. Asterisk, I woke up to sunlight pouring through the blinds. Sheets tangled around me like evidence I couldn't erase. The house was quiet, too quiet. No dishes clinking. No footsteps. Just stillness, thick with the memory of everything that had happened. Asterisk Melissa wasn't in the kitchen. No coffee. No note. Just the scent of her perfume lingering faintly in the hallway. As if she had been there and vanished. Asterisk, I didn't know what I expected, maybe guilt, maybe confrontation. Instead, there was absence. She avoided me all day. Doors stayed closed. Curtains drawn. When we did pass each other once in the hallway, she didn't make eye contact. Just walked past with a folded towel and the weight of silence between us. Asterisk Dad returned that evening. Asterisk his voice broke the quiet like a stone through glass. He hugged me with one arm, dropped his bags, and walked straight into the kitchen calling out for Melissa. She appeared, moments later, perfectly composed, dressed in soft lavender, lipstick slightly faded. She kissed his cheek and asked how the trip went like nothing had happened. Watching them felt like watching strangers in a play I no longer belonged to. At dinner, they laughed about some client mishap. I chewed silently, barely tasting anything. Melissa never looked at me once. She served everyone, refilled Dad's wine, and carried on like a wife from a magazine, polished, pleasant, practiced. I sat across from her, stunned by how well she wore the lie. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling again. Same pattern, same silence. Only now, it wasn't wonder keeping me awake, it was a quiet kind of ache. The kind that sits behind your ribs and presses just enough to remind you it's real. The next morning, I packed early. I told Dad I needed to head back to campus to prepare for a summer internship. He barely questioned it, just handed me gas money and told me to text when I arrived. Melissa stood by the door as I zipped my bag. Her arms were crossed, expression unreadable. When Dad stepped out to take a phone call, she finally looked at me. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said. I didn't respond. She hesitated, then stepped closer, lowered her voice. It wasn't just you, she whispered. It was the silence, the years, everything I swallowed and buried. I looked at her, really looked. She didn't seem seductive now. Just tired, a little broken. Maybe always had been. I wanted to ask if she regretted it, but I didn't because I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. She reached into her pocket and handed me a folded piece of paper. Don't read it now, she said. Then, without another word, she turned away. I drove for hours without music, windows down, wind rushing past like it could carry the memory away. But it stayed. Every glance, every breath, every choice, we couldn't undo. When I finally pulled into my dorm's parking lot, I sat in the car and unfolded the note. I wanted to feel wanted. Just once. You looked at me like I existed. That's all. Please forget me. I didn't know if I could. College resumed. Life moved on. I smiled in photos. I joined study groups. No one noticed the hollow parts I kept hidden behind practiced grins. But sometimes, late at night, I'd close my eyes and still see the way she had looked at Modestra. Alive, afraid. We never spoke again. Her number stayed in my phone. Untouched. Not deleted, just ... there. Part of me wondered if she kept my towel. If she remembered the smell of my skin. If she ever whispered my name in the dark, just once. But some questions aren't meant to be answered. Some stories don't need closure. They just live under your skin, quiet, sharp, and unforgettable.